Well, welcome back to what is my second video on the 19mm Nikkor f4 PC-E lens. Since I last talked about this lens, I have spent 6 months putting it through its paces and establishing whether or not to purchase it, because it is an expensive lens and it will take up more room in my camera bag. So I just wanted to just see if it's something I wanted to add, and I don't mind telling you right off the bat that the answer is an absolutely resounding yes, and here are a few of the reasons. The first is absolute tack sharpness. It is incredibly sharp. It's so sharp that even going forward, as I go into higher and higher megapixel cameras, I know this lens will stand up and hold up and deliver beautiful sharp images way into the future, which can't be said about a lot of the older lenses. The other thing I wanted to point out is that it has an enormous image circle. So this idea that it's a 19mm lens is not altogether showing you the whole picture, because you can actually take a series of images across your image circle and combine them in Photoshop without any distortion or excessive need for corrections. It means that this is a really wide angle lens and ideal for panoramas and even in architectural situations where you need a wide scene but you need something in front and the ceiling. You have this ability to just do 2 pictures, one lower and one higher, in order to get that little bit extra that you can't get with just a normal wide angle lens. So some of the places I went to were like hiking in the Grand Canyon or shooting wildlife in Yellowstone. Some of the places I went to were industrial zones or even architectural environments, and sometimes even shooting it as a fine art camera in studio. So in all those situations, it showed a tremendous amount of versatility for gaining depth of field, keeping all the lines straight or exaggerating perspective for creative uses. I found myself comparing this lens to other lenses that I'm currently using, like the 14 to 24mm lens. So in my next video, I'll be talking about the actual practical applications of using this and how to use it and the results I got from using it. And even more helpful, I'm sure you'll find, is my comparative notes as to what it's like to use this compared to how I used to use the 14 to 24 before I got this, and side-by-side comparisons as to why I would recommend this over the other lenses in most situations. Now, even though this is a fantastic lens, there are some drawbacks, and I think the main one, which not worries me, but it does make me have to pay extra attention, is the fact that the front lens element is so far forward of the lens and making it very vulnerable to both impact as well as flare. And if you're shooting nature, the sun, if it's anywhere forward, it will strike that lens and cause flare. So pay particular attention. Just walk around your camera, look at the front end, and make sure that the sun's not shining on the front element, because you will get flare. And that's normal for any wide angle lens, but especially lenses like this and the 14mm lens as well, that where they protrude so far out. Now in terms of build, I found it to be more than adequate in terms of ruggedness and durability and just solid build. The friction on the knobs was very nice, very precise and very even, and there's no slack at all. And I was able to put it through its paces where I didn't have to worry about slippage or any kind of things like that with some of the older lenses. If you don't quite get it all locked down and properly, there'll be slippage. But this doesn't need to have a locking nut for this this movement. It just turns it and stays. That's great. What else? There's the fluorine coat on the front It helps it become more weatherproof and less susceptible to fog and moisture in the front of the lens, and even resists dirt, so that's a nice touch. And the nanocrystals are fantastic for keeping stray light from entering the lens unnecessarily. Yeah, so just the lens technology of these new lenses is just getting phenomenal, and I'm very pleased all around. I'll save the rest for the next video. I just perhaps say that just be aware that this is a complicated lens. It needs to be mastered. Don't expect to just pull it out of the box and have great results on first shoot, unless of course you've got a lot of experience with other lenses like the 24 PC-E, because it actually takes a while to get used to just how much depth of field you gain by the tilts and swings, how much you have to get your f-stop up or down to fully utilize the shifts. These kind of parameters only come through experience. I haven't found anything that says the thresholds, but where at this distance you need this f-stop, at this distance and this movement you need to do this or that. You're just going to have to work it out for yourself and see what the tolerances are for your kind of work. So I would say give yourself a bit of time to grow into it, and pay particular attention to how you set the camera up. Make sure that your camera is absolutely lined up horizontally and vertically on those two axes. Follow the information in your LCD screen or inside your viewfinder that lets you know when you're level, because if you're not level, then you're going to have to fix it in Photoshop, which is kind of misses the point of having this lens. So just set it up nicely, check your focus carefully, and because it's a manual focus, not an autofocus, I would recommend you go in and check your live viewfinder, and even once you've got it composed, zoom in very, very carefully with a loupe and just study that image all over the place to make sure that you haven't got something out of whack. For instance, when you do any kind of a tilt, you gain depth of field in one plane, but you actually sacrifice depth of field in the opposite perpendicular plane. So, so be careful to check all aspects of your image when you start making movements on the lens, and it'll reward you with incredibly sharp, robust, great contrast pictures. So don't forget to look at the next video where I talk about the how-to, in terms of how to use the lens, and examples of pictures I've already taken with this lens, and lessons I've learned, and a few tricks up my sleeve. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.